Oh. Bloody yeah, boy. So you might be wondering what this marvelous vehicle on the trailer is at the moment. Yeah, I did end up getting a Pulsar. I will chuck a few clips from going to grab it in here.
Hello. Hello, sir. How are you today?
Pretty good, thank you.
That's good.
Righto guys, we're on the way to go get me a new car that I have not even seen yet. So it's one of those sight unseen, going to get a car things. It's nothing special. Oh, Adam's seen it.
I've seen it.
Is it much of a bucket?
Like, you picture one of those like old rusty buckets.
Yep.
It's not that bad.
Oh, thanks. Anyway, pretty much it's nothing special. Just the idea with this is that as much as you all know, I love my Falcon. Absolutely love my Falcon. It's just too freaking expensive to daily drive. Especially the drive from home to the workshop is quite extensive. I do it quite often and it just costs me shitloads in fuel. The thing is so thirsty. So what I would like to do is, this is just going to be a new daily. I would like to fix it up, rego it, daily this thing, and pretty much retire the Falcon as just a tow car only. So it is just a tow car, which is essentially what it was meant to be for anyway. So that's my plan. That way this thing's going to cost me a lot less in fuel to run, to daily drive. And yeah, that's pretty much what the go is here. So Adam's giving me a lift. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
And yeah, we're going to go get this thing and hopefully it's, you know, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah.
What's the sock situation today, mate?
Oh, just streamlined, mate. Just fucking.
Oh, fucking boring.
I reckon.
Oh, the old flamingos. Oh, here she is, guys. The mighty Pulsar. Mighty Pulsy. What a weapon. Nice.
It's just a fucking cap thing, and it's just
Sick.
jammed it on.
Sick. Pretty sick if you ask me. Not bad. Needs a couple of tech screws.
It's been glued,
That's alright.
but
That's fine.
Not really.
Think I'll have to keep an eye on that.
everything moves on this car.
Yeah, it just needs some tech screws. Give it a break. Oh, 220k an hour. That's a bit bloody fast.
Fucking hell, the wheels would fall off.
Got some cup holders. Not bad. Retractable. Stick all your coins down in here. Manifold gearbox. Got the young Sony player. We've got Conor McGregor here. Not bad. Not bad at all. Do you mind not wrecking my car? You can see the thing needs a few tech screws. Oh, look at that, 8,000 RPM. Bloody hell. So anyway, after Matsuri, I'll get into that. But today, got all the stuff I need for my new hot side. Got oil and filter, all the gaskets and bolts, everything I sort of need to get this hot side on the way. So head down to the workshop now. Gonna go try and get this sorted. So it's 9 days out from Matsuri now, so still cutting it fairly fine, but like I was saying in the last episode of me getting this thing ready, there's not actually a heap of work for me to do, so should still be fine. Should still get it all done. I had a bit of a doozy trying to sort out all the iPhone clips in 4K from the last video, but I did get it sorted. I'm liking this 4K stuff. Because the 4K makes the file so much bigger as well, I'm really focusing on making sure the clips are shorter, which means hopefully the videos are better for you guys because I stopped babbling so much. So anyway, I'm off. Here we go, done made it. And yeah, it turns out you can fit a total of 16 tyres in the Pulsar and still have room to drive it loaded on the trailer. Anyway, I'm gonna unload this now and then I've got to get the engine crane out of the back of the Falcon. And then I can start looking at continuing on the 31. So here we got the old manifold setup, and these are the long bolts that I bought to use as studs for the new turbo setup. Obviously I needed long ones because I'm gonna have the spacer and then the turbo and then two nuts and then you get gaskets and everything. So sort of just how it worked out. And these two are the holes where the thread's just pretty wrecked. It's drilled them out too much and there's just not enough thread of them for them to be able to be adequate on their own. The front two are fine, still plenty of thread left in them, pretty much got those directly in the middle. But these two back ones, there's just, it's not good enough. So I was debating on whether to machine or sort of grind down with the die grinder on the top and cut the bolt head to suit so that it slid through. But me and Dad and Rex here sort of conspired and decided that the best course of action is going to be to bolt that through or thread it through to about that as far as you can about there and then just weld it. welded on the top side there so that it's sort of strong and is going to stay in there and hold. So that's the plan at this stage now. So all I'm going to do now is I'll clean up the 2 bolts that I want to weld on the wire brush, make sure they're nice and clean, and I'll use a die grinder just to clean around this hole so that the manifold's nice and clean, and then it'll be same thing as before, where preheat the manifold till it's nice and cherry red, and just TIG these bolts in. So hopefully that'll get us out of trouble. Got ourselves a big old whirly willy. This is how dry and dusty it is out here. Righto, so just about set up to get started on this. Got the welder warming up, just got to weld it at 170 amps. Same thing with casters, as much heat as I can get into it really. I've got some mild filler rod here. I'm using a 2.4 tungsten, gas lens, number 6 cup I think. I've got the bolts I'm going to weld in here. I've put the nuts on them down the bottom so that afterwards I can wind the nuts up and then cut them off, and then obviously wind the nuts out and fix the threads up. And I've cleaned them up on the wire brush, as you can see. The reason I've done that, not cut them first, is so that if I need to, I can get a spanner on the end of them to wind them up. For any reason, if heat somehow distorts these threads or some reason, for any reason, I can actually wind them in as much as I can if I need to. So that's why I've left them like that. So it's just a matter of, heating this up with the oxy the same way we did the wastegate flange, getting it nice and cherry red, and then winding those in and giving it a TIG up. Hopefully it all works out all right, because I'm not that great on the TIG, but we'll find out. So that's the final product. Not pretty, but effective. So that much heat really just melted away those bolts, like the threads. It didn't do a lot of penetration into the cast. I tried my best to try and direct the heat into the cast as much as I could, but it didn't quite work out that way. But either case, it doesn't matter, because as long as that blob on the bolt is still going to anchor that into the manifold, because obviously the forces are going to be trying to pull it out. So it's going to just act like a bolt head almost. So anyway, I'm going to just pop this out into the sun, being cast, and just let it try and cool slowly as you do. Put a fair bit of heat into the whole thing, so put it out in the sun, let it cool down slow and even, and then I can assess how long I need to cut these bolts off. So I'll be able to just wind these nuts back off, lop them off, clean up the ends, wind the nuts off, and they should be good to go. So yeah, not pretty, not ideal either, this setup obviously, but it is effective, and it means I get to save my manifold and use it. Righto, so I'll let the manifold cool down out in the sun. I thought I'd get my turbo up here and start sorting it out, so need to start getting it sorted. First thing that has to come off is this fitting for the oil feed, because obviously my manifold is here, I can't use a straight feed. I'm using this right angle banjo bolt, which goes to a -4 fitting. So this needs to come off, and that needs to go on, and it's going to come out this way sort of, so I can get my fitting on from the outside. And I got to get my water fittings in, and I got to put my return in the bottom as well, my return fitting. So get started on getting that sorted. Alrighty, so I got my feed up on here. Just sorting out my water fittings for the turbo now. Now, back when I used to have this turbo, I always had problems with these fittings leaking with crush washers, with the copper crush washers. What I ended up doing with these is putting literally just your red tap washer seals that you get from the hardware. I ended up running them, and it sealed pretty well. You can see the way it is on the turbo. It's got like a little seat, like it's meant to be O-ringed. So what I'm going to try is, as well as a heap of thread tape, I'm going to try an O-ring seal this time, and pray to the Lord that it actually seals, because these it's just about impossible to get at this once it's on the motor. This is why I didn't run water in the first turbo, just because it's so hard to get at once it's actually installed. So like this is on this side, you got manifold here, and then this is pretty much your block right here. So to actually get at this fitting once this turbo is installed is nearly impossible. So I'm really hoping that this works, this seals. I've cleaned this up with thinners as best I can. It was either this, or the other option was to use a crush washer and try and RTV seal it as well. But yeah, I suppose we'll give this a go and really hope that it seals up, because it's going to be a pain if it doesn't. Righto, so they're all fitted up. I did try blowing through. I put this fitting on it and tried to blow through the barb and block that off with my finger. There's no air leaks. I've got no questions about whether these O-rings will seal. I reckon they will seal. My biggest issue with them is whether or not they're, able to deal with the heat is my big thing. So it's a bit of a gamble, but time will tell, I guess. And that's my feed on the banjo bolt there. So that's a -4, and you've got -6 on the water, and then my return from the old turbo. And that's the turbo, just about ready to go. I just need to put this back on the manifold, clock this the way it needs to be clocked, and then I can tighten up everything on the turbo, and then essentially the turbo is ready to go. So here we go. That's just dummied up there, but that's pretty much how it is going to look. And did have a bit of trouble, had to manipulate these studs around a bit to get it to go on properly. They were all a bit hung up and bent out and doing some funny stuff, but there, got it on there. All good like. So, yeah, just a matter of I might chuck this on the car, dummy up where the turbo is going to be clocked and mark it so that I can lock it off when comes time. So this will be spaced a little bit further down just because it'll have obviously 2 gaskets in it. So it'll be a little bit further, but this turbo is even still clearing where it is, so it's going to be fine. That's all going to be good. Got a coat of paint on the manifold and the screamer out there. So while that's drying off, I've marked this engine mount where the turbo, it doesn't quite touch it, but it's close enough that I want to grind it out a bit. So I'm just going to grind this engine mount out where I've marked it there with the other one with the dial grinder. So obviously I've buttoned everything up nice and good, make sure there's no shavings getting anywhere or bits of steel. So I'll shave that engine mount down a bit, and then just sort of clean it up and put a quick spray on it just to clear the turbo a little bit. And then I've got to wet sand this just to try and get a few of those pitting marks out of it before it all goes together. And then after that, it can all pretty much go just about together and get put on the car for now. So I've just got a call from my boss as well. I've got to work tomorrow now, which is a real pain because I waited around at the coast for like 3 days for him to call. And didn't know if I was going to be working, so I pulled the trigger yesterday and decided to load up and come out here this morning because I hadn't heard and I really need to get this car ready for Matsuri, and now it turns out I've actually got to work tomorrow. So, quickly running out of time to do a lot of things. The other thing is to actually plumb back the screamer into the dump pipe. I sort of would like to put a flexi in that joint as well, just because obviously you've got it on both ends of the manifold. There's going to be a bit of movement between the two. I'd be a lot more comfortable if there was a flex joint in it too. As well as that, I've decided instead of having the extra 38mm 2-bolt flange, I wouldn't mind getting just a 2-inch, a 38mm V-band, so that I could just V-band the screamer and plumb back on and off. So for that reason, I'm not going to bother with the plumb back at this stage. Again, I really just need to get this car ready for Matsuri and get it there, and I'll worry about that stuff later. So that's going to be a later problem. So the screamer is going to be going back on. It's going to be screamer for Matsuri, and that's how it's pretty much going to be going back together at this point until further on down the track. So you can see there, I've just ground that down with the die grinder. Actually broke the stone on the die grinder doing it, and just cleaned it up a bit. So now I'm just going to hit it with some of this high heat paint, just to seal it. But that extra couple of mil should be some pretty good clearance for that turbo. So should be happy with that. You see there, that's all me tyres from Matsuri. Don't have that many rims, but I'll just have to get some changed at the track on probably Saturday or something. Righto, so while I'm waiting for the paint and stuff on the manifold to tack off and dry, I've got my new fittings here that I will put on. So I've got the water is a M14 1.5 to -6. So that's what the water feeding on the block is. That's the high pressure water feed on the block, is M14 by 1.5. And the oil is a M12 by 1.25. And that's for a -4 for the oil feed. So I can chuck these into the block, prep them, get them in the block ready to go. And yeah, getting pretty close to being able to chuck this together and almost get it on there. There you go, some new Butte fittings. There we go, that's the business. So I just gave that spacer a bit of a wet sand, just trying to get a lot of the mil marks out of it, the deep scores. And as always, just swimming in that Permatex copper gasket spray. Left the studs long enough to get lock nuts on them. So they're all lock nutted. Got the 2 welded ones on this side. Obviously with studs, the idea is that they aren't welded so that you get more clamping force, because obviously as you do up the nut, it tries to do up the stud. That's why they have different threads on each end as well. So it is a lot to do with the clamping force you get from tightening the studs. So there is arguments that this, welding them in, obviously you don't get as much clamping force as a regular stud. But the fact is that the studs that were in this manifold were that grown to it that I couldn't get them out. So they were that solid in there that they may as well have been welded anyway. So there's no disadvantage to the way it was before. And obviously I needed the extended studs to fit this spacer in this turbo the way it's set up. So that's the business there. Looking pretty good. Looking like it means business. So hopefully that all stays nice and sealed. And I don't have any issues with that. Fingers crossed, because it's a real pain. Pretty much if I end up having issues with this setup, I will just be going down the road of a high mount. I'm not going to waste. This is going to be the last iteration of the low mount setup. This is going to be my last attempt. If I have issues with this, that is not just obviously the turbo blowing, which may happen. But if I have any other issues with this setup, it's just going to, I'll sell it and just go to a high mount. There you go. It's what dreams are made of. So turbo's all together. Everything's together, mostly. Pretty much ready to go on the block. So yeah, I suppose I'll chuck it on. One thing I forgot to check was whether this fitting actually didn't fail on the block or not when it was on the turbo. So that is going to be interesting, that one. I'll chuck it on dummy first and see if that clears before I go getting the gasket ready. Righto guys, so dummy fitted this to the block. The right angle fitting does clear the block just, but I had a change of heart and decided to take the O-rings off these fittings just because I reckon the O-rings sealing quite well, but I just don't believe they're going to deal with the heat of this turbo setup. So I've decided to go with a steel cross washer instead. And along with the cross washer, I'm also going to RTV or ultra copper the crush washer, both sides as well, and put the fitting on with some ultra copper and the crush washer, and hopefully that seals it, because where this is, like this just clears the block enough, but you wouldn't get it off this fitting while it's all installed. So the way this setup is, I really am counting on this not leaking. So I've decided to just do this now and not run the risk of running the O-rings. So, all right, so there you have it. Absolutely gross, ugly. I absolutely lathered them up all over the thread, everything. I don't really care what it looks like, just as long as this thing does not leak water. It is just not in a position where I'm even going to entertain the fact of trying to fix leaks on the housing here. So this better seal it. If it doesn't, I suppose I will just run it until it pops. I don't know. But I really don't plan on ever taking this off to fix anything. So there we go. I finally got to use that beanie I bought at the start of the build. Figured I don't think it's going to do much, honestly, and I don't think it's going to cope well with the heat. But I figured I've already paid for it and I had it, so I may as well chuck it on and make some use of it. So this is all put together, ready to go. Thread tape my boost reference. I've wiped this down with thinners. And I've wiped down the head with thinners and got the gasket on. Full of copper spray, ready to go. So I'm gonna pop this in now. That's another thing to cross off the list, which will be nice. Righto, so a little bit of a problem with the water feed. I had just a straight connector on it. As you can see, that is where the feed for the water is. And as you can see, with a straight connector on it, it very much interferes with the dump pipe in a great deal. So that just makes it way too hard to deal with. So I've decided I'm going to try and order a 60 or a 90 degree, probably a 90 degree fitting. I've got plenty of length on the actual feed line, so I can just run it straight up the back where that water return is and run it all the way around the back of the dump and the screamer and everything into where it feeds. So apart from that, everything's put back on. I had to make a new oil return because I cut the other one too short because I'm a doofus. And the feed is there, as you can see, nice new braided feed. So much more comfortable with that feed than the old one. I think that's going to be a lot better. And yeah, everything's on otherwise. So yeah, I'll drop it down and give you the look from the top. So here you see it from the top. Because of the way I clocked the outlet for the compressor housing on the turbo, it actually keeps that intake up off the guard a little bit more, which is nice. So this is all pretty much together. As you can see, it's pretty busy. And as I was saying just before with this feed, there is plenty of length for me to actually run that right around the back of everything down to where it's got to go. So she should be right. Not that worried about that. That'll be good. So I'll just put a right angle on the end of that, I think. So yeah, not bad. So that's what we're up to at the moment. Honestly, pretty good day, to be honest. Fair bit done. It sucks that I got to go work tomorrow now, but it's also, yeah, good that I got work. So that is okay. Still got a fair bit done. It's a fair chunk of progress to get this much done. And so pretty much what's left is to sort out that fitting for that feed, that water feed. I then have to tee in the water return to the heater, which I have fittings and stuff for. I'm going to replace that heater hose that I split at morning session so that that doesn't potentially cause an issue at Matsuri. So it's going to be a new heater hose there as well. And I'm going to tee it into that one, obviously, because it's the one that goes into the water pump housing. So that's, yeah, all that's left is to sit the intake pipe back in there and probably refab a little bracket to mount the pod filter. And then I still got to refab the dump pipe, which will be the next expedition of things to do. And then after that, it's just a matter of running it, checking for oil leaks in everything that I've replaced, which fingers crossed there's not. And then I can dump the oil, do a complete service. I've also got a new sump plug, which hopefully this time is the right one to put into the sump. And after that, it's pretty much Matsuri ready. Just a quick wash, get rid of all the belt slap. Hopefully, I was going to have a look at that diff as well. It's just that diff's weeping still a bit of a leak on the diff, but I'm not sure whether I'll get to that or not. But what are we now, about 11 days out, I think, from Matsuri. So it's not too bad. We'll get there, it'll be right. So anyway, smash like, subscribe, leave a comment, and yeah, catch us on the next one. See you next time when I'm hopefully sorting this out again.